Hey Mark, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm
Good to see
good.
you.
I was curious for this interview. Of course, I'm going to ask you about ThetaRay and everything that you are leading. But before, I want the audience to get some perspective about you, even stuff that you did before. So if you can give us a little bit of a background about yourself.
Yeah, definitely. So I just love building companies that grow fast, and was very a privilege to help building the first internet service provider in Israel that became NetVision, one of the largest in the region. And then another company, Delta 3, the first voice over IP company that went public. And again, share went up very nicely. And, and then another company that brought encrypted satellite communication to Africa, Middle East, a company called Skyvision. And what was very unique about those companies that when I built them, nobody believed that it would be necessary in the future.
Mhm.
In internet in Israel, when we built NetVision, people didn't even call it internet. They call it Inter 10. 10 is
Mhm.
give me in Hebrew, which sound much more natural to Israelis. And of course, voice over IP. Now you're doing this interview and I'm speaking to a computer. We use Zoom. But when we brought voice over IP initially, people said like, who should be this crazy person that will be speaking with a computer? And eventually it became a success as well. When we brought encrypted satellite communication to Africa and the Middle East, financial institutions and other organizations, oil companies, oil rigs, people said, is it really like, do they really need so much bandwidth? And the answer is, of course, yes, they did need so much bandwidth. And then the last company was a company that dealt more with government agencies, using algorithms to help them catch bad guys. You know, government agencies have a lot of information, but how to use this information to find the next terrorist organization, to find this needle in a haystack of needles. And in a way, and by the way, we sold this company very successfully. And in a way, that's what we do in ThetaRay. We use a very advanced level of artificial intelligence, we call it artificial intuition, to help good guys to fight with bad guys, and specifically to help banks to conduct correspondent banking or cross-border transactions in a way that is much more secure, much more profitable for them, and much better for the customers.
How big is this market? Just so I'll get the understanding with the banks and protecting them against fraud and crime.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that our system can do, crime and fraud and money laundering. But even that one area that now, because of COVID-19, we're focusing on, which is what people call cross-border transactions or correspondent banking, it's a huge area. Today, it's about $20 trillion that being moved internationally. Uh, in 2020, it probably will be closer to $30 trillion. Just to give you an example of how big it is, how large it is, SWIFT, which is the leading gateway, transfers about 38 million transactions a day.
Wow.
Citibank, they move about $3 billion a day among 190 countries in 130 currencies. So when you have so much data and so much information moving, how you analyze it very fast and make decisions. But this is the size of the market, and it's growing. It's growing enormously.
So they have to use your service. I mean, you're doing it with algorithms, doing it with AI, right?
Absolutely. And look, if we will try to understand why it's so important, why it was so difficult to solve, if you go to bankers and tell them, what's your biggest problem or one of the biggest problems, they will tell you correspondent banking, risk associated with it. Because think about it, you want to transfer money to somebody in another country. It sounds easy, but in reality, you will go to your bank, that will go to another bank. You can call it a correspondent bank that will go to another bank, which you can call intermediate bank, or maybe a few more intermediate banks. Then they might use SWIFT as a gateway. Then it will go to another intermediate bank, and then it will go to a respondent bank, and then it will go to a recipient bank, and then the money will be paid to somebody. Now, when somebody tells you that his name is Mr. Jones and he lives somewhere, how do you know that it's Mr. Jones and not Mr. Bin Laden? You have to trust a bank that you've never seen, and you don't even have a relationship with that bank. So this chain is extremely complex. There is a lot of data associated with that. And historically, the only people who could really make decisions are very experienced investigators. If you will go to your bank account and you will say, I would like now to transfer $10,000 or $100,000, probably they will tell you that this transfer will take you probably 1 to 3 days. And they will need somebody internal to validate the transaction and to sign on that. And it probably will cost you $30, $40. The real cost is 10 cents. And it can be done in seconds. But there are a lot of controls in place. So what our system does, it uses artificial intuition. Again, we call it artificial intuition because it really mimics human intuition. It gives computers ability to have something that is very similar to gut feelings, common sense, and using our technology that analyzes the financial data, we can predict that what's going on is money laundering, terrorist funding, human trafficking, etc.
Very exciting. You know, these are the conversations that I have every day with banks, and I just give you just today. I mean, I spoke with on the one side a huge real estate company in the Netherlands that have hard time to open these bank accounts because they I don't know, because of past fraud and stuff that happened in the past in the Netherlands. You know, in banks. And on the other hand, with people who are saying to me, yeah, of course, the banks want to be careful because, you know, these things, you know, that have a lot of risk. So if your company can assure that those transfers, that's a big market there.
Oh, absolutely. And look, the world is changing. Just 2 months ago, there was a huge leak, whistleblower leak documents. It's called FinCEN files. It's almost like a Snowden revelation. If not COVID-19, probably everybody would be talking about it. He released, the whistleblower, he or she released a set of documents, suspicious activity reports, talking about 892 banks all around the world that launder more than actually $2 trillion. And the rumors say that this is maybe 1% of the overall documents that are there.
Wow.
And the question is, with all those technologies the bank have, why still it's happening? And the reason it's happening is because that's where we come to a combination or intersection of cyber and fintech. You know, today, most of these criminal activities are not done physically. People don't really come to a branch of a bank and threaten the clerks to shoot them up. It happens in Hollywood movies, but in reality, it's all in the world of cyber. Think about it. You can be somewhere in Eastern Europe, and you can connect remotely to an Israeli bank or an American bank and open tens of thousands of identities, accounts, using real people's identities. And then use those accounts to transfer money to 1,000 identities that you opened in Africa, and then move the money to 10 recipients somewhere in the Middle East, just as an example. So existing controls that based on rules and thresholds and signatures that were built for the old world of banking don't work anymore, because we now talk about digital banking, virtual banking, banking systems that active in cyber domain. And that's why the banks are really looking for a technology that will allow them to conduct business or keep conducting business in this very difficult world of cybersecurity threats. And now, because of COVID-19, of course, the situation became even more difficult, because on one hand, the ability to physically identify people, it's even more limited. You know, historically, even if somebody opening an account remotely, you can tell them, look, next time you come to the United States, please come to a branch of a bank. We would like to identify you, and please show us real ID. Today, You cannot do it because they cannot travel. Of course, bad guys facing the same problem. Historically, they could move suitcases full of cash, and if they don't like cash, they could buy some diamonds, put them in a suitcase, and go to another country. Today, it's much more difficult. So they have to use the banking system, the financial system, to transfer money. So a problem that was a big problem before became even worse during COVID-19. And of course, our ability to put a financial system, but a software that will teach itself, will understand how the situation is working, will mimic human intuition, and to automatically detect those problems definitely is very, very important for the banks and our customers. And maybe just a few words about the founders of the company who developed this technology, because people tell us artificial intuition, that's cool. So it's Professor Koifman from Yale. He's 20 years on the advisory board of DARPA, which is the largest technology investor in the world.
Wow.
Owned by Defense Secretary of Defense of the United States, and is also recipient of Golden Medal of Science by President Clinton for this work. It's a pretty prestigious award. There is no Nobel Prize for mathematics, by the way. And Professor Averbuch, who was in Columbia University, then 10 years in T.J. Watson Center of Excellence of IBM, and then Tel Aviv University. And they both worked for 20 years to develop these algorithms that mimic human intuition. We were very lucky to build the company together with them, acquire the patents from the universities, and build this solution.
And I understand that JVP and Ariel Margalit also invested, right?
Yes, definitely. We're very privileged to have JVP as our investors. Actually, they introduced me to the professors. So in none of my companies, I was really a founder. I always joined amazing founders and just helped them to manage the company. So in this case, definitely JVP not only investors and big supporters, but they also helped to create the company. And of course, Ariel Margalit does an amazing job as my chairman. It's a great opportunity to be in a situation where I can work with somebody that can learn so much, as is a big visionary. We also have additional people that helping us, Yoav Tzuria from JVP, additional funds, our crowd with John Medved, banks that invested in ThetaRay, including Israeli banks like Bank Hapoalim, but also banks all around the world. Organizations like General Electric that are partners in the company, and even airline companies are investors. So yeah, I'm lucky not only to have an amazing team of people and amazing founders, but also amazing investors, and it really helps.
Amazing. Yeah, everybody's hearing a lot about Israel with cyber, and now you're connecting me to cyber and fintech, and you're explaining me why is it so much together, especially during these COVID reality and days. By the way, what are the markets that you are already operating in?
So we are already working in Europe. We're already working in Americas. We now tighten our connection to UAE and to the Gulf area in general. I think that the solution is very much needed. This intersection of cyber and fintech is important. UAE is becoming one of the leading financial hubs of the world. It's definitely the leading hub in the Middle East region. I think we can extend it to Africa as well. So we are very much excited, have pretty strong demand, and very much excited to allow banks in UAE and in the Gulf region to use our solution and make their financial systems much safer.
So that's why I see you flying a lot.
That's why I fly a lot to UAE. I'm very excited about the peace agreement. I think it's just the beginning. I think there is a huge cooperation. In a way, we're pretty similar. Not only that both of us, or both of our nation's histories goes back to Ibrahim, but I think we're also small markets. We both understand that it's not only about local market, it's about global operations. Both of us very much cherish the culture of trust and building relationships. And in a way, the technology, the solution we're bringing builds those values, bringing back trust to financial institutions all around the world. So I'm very optimistic about closer relationships between Israel and UAE and the rest of the Gulf area and the Middle East. I also believe that economy drives real and sustainable peace. And that's what's happening. I was really pleased to join Arel Margalit at his first high-tech delegation that came to UAE. He got an enormous welcome, and we also were privileged to see a very warm welcome for the company and for our solutions, and for the entire Israeli high-tech ecosystem.
Amazing. This is so relevant to our summit because we are focusing this year in Israel and the UAE relations. And by the way, also Bahrain, we should mention a lot of opportunities creating these fintech bridges. And yeah, I absolutely agree with all you said. I mean, I think it's an amazing opportunity. And I know that you have close relations already with some partners over there. Which is super, super important in building the structure for even more partnerships and even more collaboration. So you were one of the first people flying there and establishing the connections, and now you also have a practical product that is relevant for the market.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I was privileged to send regards from UAE, and very soon you will see my regards from Bahrain as well. Absolutely.
Amazing. Look, you already convinced me before the interview about the company, but I'm very, very happy that people here are watching us and getting to know about ThetaRay and everything that you're doing. And where can they learn more about you, follow you, or follow the company? Where's the best place?
They definitely can go to the website, which is www.thetaray.com. They can go and see my LinkedIn profile, the company LinkedIn profile, Facebook, email. Would love to give more information. There are quite a large number of movies on YouTube. And what I would really recommend is also to go and to look at the scientific movies. You know that some people don't like math, but when you see Professor Koifman talking about those algorithms, and you can just type Koifman and ThetaRay, you will see that math can be extremely exciting. And of course, the business implications are very important. And you know, it's a great privilege not only to build a great company and that really makes all the financial services better served, but to bring trust to this global banking system and payment system that I strongly believe is actually the pipes that make the world economy work. And you know, at the end of the day, to make the world a much safer place.
Amazing. That's the bigger vision here. Great. Thank you very much, Mark. I'm really happy you're a part of the summit and really help us pushing it. And you know, next year we want to do the FinTech hackathon with banks with open API, and I'm sure you can play a big part over there with the security and the cyber and everything that you're leading. And your vast network and vast know-how in this field is critical to all these banks and fintechs. So thank you very much, and we'll keep in touch.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you very much.
Bye. Take care.